Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of Let's Get You Painted. I'm Alec of Racked and Confused, the Twitch channel, and Let's Get You Painted, the YouTube channel, as well as the Atlanteans. Today, I have with me my good friend of like 15 years, Jeremy. Jeremy, how are you doing, buddy?
Can't complain, man. Hanging in there, painting some Pan Oceania for
Oh,
Infinity.
there you go. And we've known each other a long time. You've been an amazing painter that both knows how to speed paint as well as quality paint. And I asked you to come on the channel and chat with me on painting all different types of minis and, some lore, some history, some fun, and some painting techniques. So, give us your like quick bit, you know, what's
Yeah.
your history
So,
on painting?
so I started painting when I was 7, believe it or not, and it was with miniatures. My dad bought me the Undead Blood Bowl team for third edition Blood Bowl way back in the day, like 1995.
Hmm.
And because Blood Bowl has always been my true love of miniature games. It's always just been fun. You can dabble in competitive, and it's great. The models are simple. You don't have to paint too many. So it was, that's how I started, and then I discovered Warhammer Fantasy as a child. That spiraled into its own thing.
Okay.
Um, but I've been painting for a long time, off and on, and I will say that I was one of the people that got sucked into I guess you could say the Warhammer painting philosophy of layer. You basically base coat, shade, layer a little bit, maybe highlight here and there, and you're done for the tabletop. So I'm okay at that. And then within the last couple of years, especially branching out to different game systems,
Hmm.
um, I just picked up the idea. It was like, well, maybe if I just try to slow down and actually make things look better. So like what I like Alex said earlier, I am an aficionado when it comes to getting an army painted, looking good for table, and that is what I'm good at. So painting orcs, painting Skaven, I could churn through 100 clan rats in a week. They're gonna look fine. They're not gonna look like they're gonna win an award or anything like that, but they're gonna look great from the tape from 3 feet away when you're at the table.
Hmm.
Um, but watching a lot of these painters, we had great painters in our area. Gabe Thorne, Golden Demon painter. We had Darren Brown, Golden Demon painter. So they like, and Alec, these guys. They give you little tidbits here and there. And if you actually like ask them for feedback or how to paint better, they'll spend the time to help you.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like a full on class, but sometimes it was actually. But most of the time they'll sit down with you, take 20, 30 minutes and show you what you're doing, what you could be doing better.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of the inspiration to get better, I guess. I've been painting for so long, and this paint by the numbers style for both Warhammer, War Machine, um, that I kind of just wanted to get better instead of just slap chopping my way through life because it was faster.
So, what would you say is one of your techniques that you've learned in the past 15 years?
Um, well, let's go with underbrushing. Let's talk
Okay.
about that, right? Underbrushing, pre-shading, whatever you want to call it. It's so when people talk about slap chop, because it's a buzzword, right? That is not and has never been a new thing within the last 5 years. I know Honest Wargamer is a phenomenal channel, and like he puts in a ton of work, and I get like he has a huge following, so the term caught on. But people have been doing that for an eternity. As long as paintings existed, there's been some kind of pre-shading, some kind of pre-brushing, so you can establish your values on your model. They
Hmm.
kind of act as a guide for how your light is going to reflect from that model when you look at it, right?
Yep.
So making sure like underbrushing is a good way to establish your shadows, establish your highlights, and maintain that throughout the painting process. So obviously, working through thinner layers. That's why it works so well with transparent paints. Um, a good person to actually watch on this, if anybody is definitely Kenny Boucher from Next Level Painting, because he
Hmm.
did a nice little tutorial on how to basically glaze over an underbrush or a pre-shade, probably a couple years before the Honest Wargamer put out that video on Slapchop. But like, I'm not taking away credit, obviously, but this isn't a new thing, and there are many more ways to approach this, especially with airbrushes. That there's a plenty of content creators out there that have different things if you want to level up. But there's nothing wrong with sitting down, priming black, and going on grayscale, dry brushing gray, dry brushing white in the high areas, and then slapping some contrast paint on it. If that's your thing and that's how you get your stuff painted, more power to you. We have a golden rule from the same guy we mentioned earlier, Darren Brown. He's passed it on to all of us when we really got harder into this hobby and painting, building things, making new things, kit bashing, all that good stuff. You never, ever, ever undervalue a fully painted army, ever.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they're brand new painters or what. Never, ever talk down on a fully painted army.
Yeah, Darren is an amazing painter and has given me some very good tips over the years. I haven't seen him in a long time because I moved, but man, I miss Darren. Darren's one of those people
Yeah.
that he would sit down with his laptop, some anime going, he'd pause it because he was painting while, you know, listening or watching to something, and he would give great tips. But no, that was the thing. If you think about it, like he was before we even had contrast, it was, you know, let's paint it, let's dry brush it, let's put a couple thin coats on, see where the color comes out, see if you're liking where the highlights are, and then from there, go on further. And he'd be like, hey, if this is your skill level or if this is your time level, because he definitely would tell us that as well, like, hey, how much time do you have to spend on your army or on this miniature itself? Okay, you only have that much time? Perfect. All right, let's focus on this. Let's get it done.
Yep.
And it wasn't, you only have this much time. Well, you'll have one beautiful display piece. No, get it done. Get it done, and you can always come back.
And
And
that's the thing too, is never unwarranted advice or anything like that. Like, one of the things I think people really, especially in the painting sphere, because everything is anonymous online, right? But we already know if you're anonymous, you feel
so much
stronger,
stronger.
tougher, say whatever you want. But if award-winning painters, and I'm not joking when I say, like, these guys are award-winning painters. Crystal Brush, Golden Demon, doesn't matter. These guys are award-winning painters. They've probably both. I know Gabe's won both of them.
Yeah.
But like, if they're taking the time and they're like, oh yeah, that's cool, but if you do this, 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 and this, and like it looked finger painted from some of my older stuff. They'll be like, oh, if you just do this, this, and this, you can bring out these specific details, and it makes your model look 10 times better, right?
Hmm.
So like, if those guys will take the time and do that either online or in person with random painting from different people, then there's no reason other people should be going on and shitting on somebody else's painting. It's just don't do it. Give them feedback if they ask for it, but compliment the things they do right, right? Because one of the things to keep people painting is they need that positive force behind it. Because if they're painting something and then somebody on the internet just craps all over it, it's going to push that person either one of two directions. It's going to force them to want to look to get so much better that they can shut down that person, or they're just not going to want to share their stuff, and eventually that might push them out of the hobby. So
Oh yeah,
we want
you and
people
I
to
have seen that
stay
personally.
in the hobby. Yes, we have.
There was someone who I used to know at the game store when we used to go there, where the first thing he would tell you when he saw your pieces, he would start by criticizing what he saw. That
Yep.
was it wasn't a compliment. It wasn't like, and he wasn't coming necessarily from a bad place, but his first thing was, I'm going to be critical over this. I'm going to give, this, and this feedback. And it's like, well, are those unwarranted? No. But this person's
What
been
they asked for.
painting 4 months and they asked, what do you think? Like, does it look good? If someone ever asks you with the words, does it look good? Say yes. Like, don't be like, no, it
Offer
looks like,
feedback
yeah,
only when
don't,
they ask for it.
yeah. When they get to the point of, hey, what can I do to make this look better? Oh, well, here, you could do this and this and this. And you don't have to just, you know, shit on their entire model. And definitely been a problem for some people over the years.
And it's a problem for game stores too. Like you got to remember when you're hanging out at these places, it's more than just a place you go. Okay, there are people that work there that they require people be coming in, buying paints, buying models. If you push away somebody with unwarranted criticism or level of toxicity like that, that person is no longer going to come to that store, buy models, buy paint, buy snacks, whatever. Like that loses that place that you love so much and you want to keep the lights on. That loses them a customer, right?
Hmm.
These are rippling effects. So, but when it comes to especially building a community, you have to see, like, you can't approach the new people like you would with your friends. Like Alec and I can talk shit to each other all day because we know neither one of us is going to be obviously personal with it.
Hmm.
But like if I show him something and it looks obviously like something that is way below what I'm capable of paint wise, he's going to say something. But we have that rapport, we have that friendship. We've known each other for almost 2 decades in the
Well,
hobby,
also,
various games.
I
You
might
just
be
can't
like,
do that
hey,
with new
man, this
people.
looks bad. What's going on in your life? Like,
Yeah,
do you need to
yeah.
talk about it?
Like I'm not some award-winning painter, but I'm not like I can paint in the lines, So, uh, but it's just like we're talking about all these techniques and like slap chop or underbrushing. Like this is a very lazy
I
pano
don't think
paint
it's
job,
lazy. I think it
really.
gets it like it's so like I would say lazy painting is more on someone who is painting messy. Like people who speed paint, like you and I have seen people who play like Tyranid sometimes where their brush, they're using
Yeah.
like a brush that size. This is okay, so this is what I'm painting with. Let's see if I can get it to zoom in. This is what I'm painting with, and this is the giant brush. And they just, you know,
Slather it
flat
all over.
yeah, just so that they can say,
Yeah.
oh, well, here's red, here's yellow, here's orange. I threw, pond pebbles on the base. Technically, it's painted. Let's go.
Yeah.
And
That
so
does happen.
that's what I would define as like lazy painting. I wouldn't necessarily say that people who are um, doing slap chop or too thin coats or anything like that, underbrushing are necessarily lazy. That might be their skill level because there are people who their handshake. There are people who don't know, don't do color theory, don't understand blending and things like that, and they will paint. That is how they know that they can paint to make it look halfway decent. I
Yep.
mean, there are people I know
And
who don't mix colors or they don't thin their paints out. Like right now on my palette, I mixed a gray, a blue, and a brown together so that I can get a good hair color that has like blue tints in it. Does everyone do that? No. Do you need to
no,
do that? No. Do
no.
I do that? Yes. But you don't have to. And
It's the same like with this guy. Like we're just talking about it. The reason why I say it's a lazy paint job, right? And what I say like lazy, it's joking in this regard. So if you look at this, like you can tell it's zenithilled, right? Because you can see the transitions from just using a transparent paint.
mhm,
So yeah, I did use Acerman Blue. Why? I didn't want to spend forever painting this guy, but I also know that Acerman Blue works naturally with Ducat Blue from like AK third gen, right? It's the perfect layer color for it. So all you do is just slap some of that around the edges, keep the shadows that your transparents and your zenithal have defined, and kind of just build from that. So that's all that is. Now, is it super glowing OSL effects? No, but I painted them in 2 hours.
mhm.
And that's something I wouldn't suggest doing that. Like if you're painting and you're like if you're playing Winter Guard Rifle Corps or something, and you have like 30 riflemen, and that you're not going to spend 2 hours on each guy. If your goal is just to get them to the table, there are certain things like nobody's going to judge you for it. The average gamer is going to honestly. I would just suggest just Zenithal prime them, paint them in their colors, clean it up a little bit if you want, but if they're regular dudes that are going to spend 30 seconds on the table the minute they're looked at, putting that much effort into it is going to drive you nuts unless you really want your army to look that good. There's nothing against, like, I have nothing against, and there's nothing wrong with taking a lot of time on basic infantry models for a game. But if you have 20 or 30 of them, don't make yourself go crazy, especially if they're like zombies and skeletons or any kind of faction like Soul Blight and Age of Sigmar. Just get them done as best as you can, as fast and efficiently as you can, because you need to paint so many models. In this case, like, I can spend 2 hours on a remote for Infinity because it's one of 15 models, because there's a cap of the amount of models you can use in Infinity in a list. That hard cap is 15 because it's more of a special operations in the future type of scenario, the way the game plays out. Kill Team, if nothing against Kill Team, it's a really simple game though, and it plays like hobbyists first Infinity, if that makes sense, because the rules, like, if it's a similar concept, but the rules are scaled up. But you also, with only 15 models, you really can spend 2, 3, 4, 2 days on a model, and it's not really going to kill your time getting that stuff done.
Whereas I'm trying to get like 55 pieces done in a single Gravedigger list for this Gravedigger army that I'm painting. Like, and I have to do 200-point lists, and there is some crossover, but there's not a lot.
Yeah. Well, like, I think we can also agree too. There's something, a lot of these slapchop leaning channels, they don't really tell you the pros and cons of actually using that kind of painting style, especially if you're dry brushing. If you have an airbrush, just zenithal your values from the direction that you want your paint coming from, or your highlights, like where your lighting's coming from, or where you want your highlights to show the best. That's what zenithal priming's best for, right? Because it acts as like a filter for your highlights as you add thinner layers over the top of it. So if you're airbrushing, you're not going to notice the same types of issues because it tends to go on smoother across the model. Obviously, there's a lot of error that's involved with humans brushing on different things. I mean, you can still blast an airbrush, and like with an airbrush, you can still like fill in details and stuff because you didn't thin down the paint enough or this, that, and the other thing. But one of the things I want to say, like, when you start getting into Slapchop, but the thing they don't talk about in a lot of the basics channels where they really get into why it's a good thing to do, you don't need to leave everything like grayscale. One of the biggest mistakes I think people make is that they just use grayscale for everything regardless of the color. So they're priming black, they're dry brushing a mid-tone gray, and then they're going over the tops in white. That's fine. But if you want to get rid of that dirty looking finish on some things that have more flat panels, or even things like orcs, right? Anything that's like more skin, but they're all muscly and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You probably want to use a base tone that's closer to what your actual tones are going to be, right? Or like if you're priming it black, instead of priming it black, you're going, if your skin's going to be green, why don't you prime it brown, like a neutral brown, not so much in the reddish brown spectrum, but go with the brown, right? Like it's going to look more natural with the coats that go over the top of it. Like you can go lighter brown to yellow even if you want, like, because yellow is a natural highlight for most vibrant greens anyways. So that'll give you a better filter when you toss on your transparent paint. So like I think that's one of the things that we should put out there, is just really try changing up what you're using for your primer or your base coats, your initial base coats, or if you're doing like anything like Zenithal plus like your OSL type of shading, like a universal shadow color, that's the same thing. Like pick things that work with your palette, right? And that's as easy as going and looking up a color palette on Google and just seeing like, okay, what transitions into this color? You can just go around the scale and see, right?
Yeah.
And so if I was like with these guys, since they're in blue, blue's cold usually. We just went with white over the top. You don't need a big transition of black to gray, whatever. Blue, most transparent blues are going to look like blue black. I think I actually have that paint around here too. But there's a Procryl blue black that is very blue tinted, but it still reads as black. So something like that, if you're painting blue, prime your model, thin coats, get it done, and then blast it with blue black through an airbrush, or find like, or just if you don't have an airbrush, blast it black with your primer, and then put a solid blue black base coat down, right? And then build up from there. Usually, like, go into your lighter, your gray blues, your off whites, right? That'll build a more natural um, transition for your blues than just going black, gray, white. And it will leave a less, and then you'll get rid of a lot of that. Like, I'm shaking my hands, but it's like you can see, like, you'll see streaks
Hmm.
from where you dry brush sometimes. That's a whole other topic, but the closer those colors are to the colors that you're using over the top of them, the less you're going to see that dirty finish on your model. So that's one thing to think about when you start approaching speed painting, especially, as there's plenty of companies out there too, if you don't have an airbrush, that make colored primers. And those, a
Hmm.
lot of the darker color, like Vallejo has a ton, Monument has a decent amount. Um, just try to find something that works better for your color palette. That's all.
Absolutely. Well, I've definitely, yeah, getting different colors. Well, I mean, even with dry brushing on after you've painted, dry brushing on different colors, I think people feel that dry brushing is one of those things, or undercoating is one of those things you only do in the very beginning, when you can definitely
No.
do that later on.
Yep. And dry brushing, just like everything else, like there isn't any set time you need to do it, right? It's just like any other skill. It can be applied in various stages. Like a lot of times, like I know you know this. We were taught how to highlight cloaks faster for like Space Marine Command Squad guys way back in the day, like the metal Space Marine Command Squad, those goofy looking, totally not in scale with the rest of the models in 40K at the time, like fifth edition era. Like just dry brush the raised sides of the cloaks. That's it. Like
Yep.
it's smoother. It doesn't come out as chalky, right? Like as long as you add a little moisture. If you want to get around the chalkiness of dry brushing, Pro Acryl, they talked about it on some of their Instagram stuff with how to dry brush, but also these guys, obviously not a sponsor or anything, but Artis Opus, these guys have phenomenal products in general, but they also have an entire series on how to dry brush. And the gentleman that does all of the classes at like the different conventions and stuff is the one that runs all these dry brushing classes. And now, do you need to buy their whole kit of dry brushing stuff? No. You just need a makeup brush, a makeup sponge. That's it. Like get a makeup sponge, throw it in a small container, make sure it's dabbed a little bit. Get these for like 3 for $5 on Amazon. Get you control. Get a little drop, a couple of drops of water on top of that sponge. Moisten the brush you're using for dry brushing, and make sure it maintains a little bit of moisture. That will get rid of a good amount of the chalkiness and the streaking from when you're dry brushing, right? Because there's that dry brushing is finding that happy medium between dry brush and overbrushing. Overbrushing is where you have moisture on your brush and you're just using the brush to hit higher edges of things with a more opaque layer in one go.
Funny
That's
enough,
probably
that's what I'm
a good
doing
way to describe that. Yeah.
right
Yeah,
there on her
exactly.
blade.
So dry brushing is just that, but obviously less moisture. You just want the brush damp. You don't want it wet, right? And in both scenarios, you do need to control the amount of paint that's on the brush, but those are things you're not, it's not going to be something you pick up immediately. So as if you're doing your speed painting with your dry brush steps for your slap chop, you're going to see as you go, your models are going to improve over time as your dry brushing improves, because you're going to have an epiphany moment. Like instead of using a flat anything to just, like, you don't need to use paper towels for dry brushing. First and foremost, you don't.
I use my
Having some
hands.
kind of, I use foam.
I mean, so actually, I don't know if you've seen this. One of the other people we had on the channel was talking about sponge chopping. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
that. That's another thing you can do that's great. And actually, that's great for camouflage. I haven't done that yet here with her, but with her, her cloak is going to get camo on it. So I'm going to cut up a little small black sponge and I'm going to use little tweezers. I'm going to just, thin out a little bit of paint and I'm just going to hit in a irregular pattern and it's going to work great for camo. And because it'll give you that, like that old style, BDU style. So some people,
Yep.
so the battle dress uniform, what people wore for years in the army. Now it's not going to give you beautiful tiger stripes like you would have in some of the Vietnam stuff or things like that, but it'll give you a really good camo, like a more realistic camo of what you'd be going for, because you don't want these straight lines, because those straight lines or even those slightly curved are not really going to break up your image. Whereas if you do sponge chopping or things like that, it's a quick process that you can then, again, as Jeremy talked about, controlling the moisture you have, and then just hitting it in different, like not straight on, but adjust 45, hit it, just 90 degrees, hit it, then hit it straight on, and things like that. And it's a quick way that is, and then, you do that with 4 different colors or 3 different colors. So like with this, when I get to the point of doing the cloak on the back, so I dry brushed it, and then I did layered highlights, which again, one of the things that Darren taught us, funny enough. Hi Darren, I don't think you
Yup.
watch the show, but if you ever do, you'll see we're chatting about you. um, so this was done with Pro Acryl camo, green camo, right there. I'm then gonna do dark green camo. I'm going to do yellow green, and I'm going to do. I have my brown around here. I haven't pulled it out. I might not have actually pulled it out, but I think it's dark brown camo. And by doing just those colors, that cloak is going to look amazing. It's going to look like a camo cloak. Like, and you can
Yeah.
do that for cloaks. You can do that for solid armor. When I get to the point of doing the jacks here, the jacks for gravediggers, same thing is going to happen to them. I painted these guys on a previous episode, and when I get to the point of doing all of the sponge chopping, I'm gonna layer, or I'm gonna not layer, I'm gonna lay out, 50 pieces or however many it is, and all of them I'm gonna go over and do the dark camo green, and then I'm gonna stop, wait for them to dry, or probably by the time I finish the last one, the first one will be dry. Then I'm gonna hit them with camo green. Then I'm gonna hit them with, or hit them with yellow green, or they hit them with the dark brown camo, and then they're done, and they're gonna look good because there's gonna be like 4 or 5 different colors on there. Actually, probably at that point in time, like 7 or 8 different colors. And unless you get up there and you have the model like 4 inches from your face, it's gonna
Yeah.
look good. Well, no, you and I have seen people who will take a model and bring it 6 inches or 4 inches from their face to look at, did you get the under part of the cloak between the legs that no one is ever going to see. Like, unless you're going for a golden demon, a golden brush, a P3 grandmaster, they are not going to flip the model up, and
Nope.
look to see, did you get the camp? They're going to see, does it look good from this far away? And if it does, then you're good. Or at
Yeah.
least in my
No worries
opinion,
about that.
you're good.
Like in most tournaments that require for most games that require a certain paint, like a certain level of painting for your stuff. I have not come into any situation in like 20 years where they pick up an individual piece and then like look up its ass crack to see if you painted the shadow down there. Like, no, they don't care. It's one of the perks of using dark primers too, by the way, guys. Like, it looks like a shadow. It's fine. Um,
And it actually
especially
works
if
really well
it's,
because you would have a
yeah,
shadow there.
and this is especially important for those of you that if you don't like your average like rifleman type of character in any of these games, be it a space marine with a bolter or a winter guard rifle corps with a rifle across his chest, don't worry about it if it's covering his chest. If you're not painting for an award, it's not. Don't stress out of it about it. You don't need to paint in sub assemblies for everything. Like it, that's usually a preference for a lot of people, but it's just not worth the time if you're just trying to get your stuff done and on the table so you can play.
So you can learn your army, play it better, and get your battle reps in.
And like Alec was saying, if you have to zoom in 4 inches or closer to see a specific hidden spot, like I'm like, is the underside of his carriage painted even though he's only like half an inch off the base and I could naturally see it? No, don't worry about that. If, like you said, if you're not painting for a competition, it doesn't matter. If you
I'll
can't see it, nobody else can.
just remember this is another thing that remember that when you take pictures and you post them online, as Jeremy was talking about how anonymous people will be kind of mean and aggressive. When you take a picture, you're going to be able to zoom in, or whoever's looking at it is going to be able to zoom in and say, oh, you missed right here. The likelihood of when the piece is down here on the table and it's multiple feet away, so it's way over here, no one is going to see that you didn't paint this one knee pad that's down here and hidden. So if you made a mistake, oh, I intended to do that. I didn't think anyone was going to see it. Or just be like, yeah, I missed it. That's my bad. Am I going to go and repaint it? Probably not, because I would rather get another game in and another battle rep and play and learn, or heck, just enjoy my life. Like, go and walk in the snow, or for those of you who don't have feet of snow on the ground, go and walk in the grass.
Yeah,
Go walk.
go outside.
Yeah,
Just go
go outside.
outside. Go live your
Um,
life. It's fine. It's not that big of a
go,
deal.
go walk your dogs another time that day, or, go give your kids a hug, something like that. Um, so just remember, it's about having fun and playing. And I think a lot of us sometimes we get caught up on, oh, we have to win, or you get caught up on, you have to be right about whatever, or you have to have the best painted army. No, we're this is our escape from reality to play and have fun. This isn't reality. Like,
We're
we
also
all have
not, if you're
jobs.
that, yeah, exactly. And if you're not, and no, he's not targeting the people that feel that way either. So,
No.
like, there's nothing wrong. If you feel like you want to push yourself, because painting is a competition of one against one, it's you against yourself, right? You can, don't compare yourself to other people's painting. That's a spiral that will not end well in most situations. Use that as inspiration to improve, but don't constantly compare yourself. One of the biggest problems, especially like if you're a competitive painter, absolutely be that way, but most of those guys will not send out toxic comments because it's not in their, they're all generally competitive, but also it's art, right? Don't be a dick. That's
Mhm.
the whole point. And then the same thing, like, do your models how you want to do them. If you want to win best painted army every time or be in consideration for it, then paint like you want to win it, right? Don't shortcut yourself and then complain later. That's a whole other topic, but there are enough of those types of people. I am one of those types of people, or I was in the past, where I thought like, oh, my army looks better than his. I'm not that great of a painter. I don't think so. I work on it, but I used to be like that where, I do some dry brushing on Skaven and I'd see somebody else that like dip their models and be like, oh, it's bullshit. No, don't be that guy. Don't be me 15 years ago. Like, just don't do that. I was fortunate enough to have actual good painters around me that kind of corrected me and got me away from that mindset. But it's a really easy trap in any, just like if it's politics, sports, whatever, it's a really easy trap to fall into to make yourself feel better. Don't fall into it. Just don't do it.
I used to, I did a lot of running, and one of the best things I got from a running coach when I was in high school is he goes, the only person you have to beat is yourself yesterday.
Yep.
And even then, there's going to be off days and there's going to be, good days and bad days. And just beat yourself from yesterday.
And always try, like, it's just that self improvement thing. If that's what you want to do and improve your painting, improve the way stuff looks, the only way to do it's to paint. So
Yeah.
if
Reps,
you
man.
if you block out a couple hours a night, you can get a, I don't know what the points are for War Machine now. Is it still like
100
75 or did
points.
they change it?
It's
Oh,
100
100
points
points.
because they don't give you Warjack points anymore.
Oh,
So
okay, good.
you would normally get about 25 to 30-ish points. So now it's just a straight 100 points. So that you don't have to really compete against, oh, I have to do this Warcaster because he is going to give me more points and things like that. So now it's just
Hmm.
straight up what it is.
Well, there you go. If you have to paint 100 points of dudes for something, you can do that in 2 hours, 3 hours a night if that's all you can get for your, like. We did this stuff when we were in the army. You never really had free time. really. Um, Especially as a private when you're kind of getting pulled in 15 different directions all the time. But like just finding an hour or two a night just to get color on something, you're still going to improve, right? Just set time aside, just get stuff done. And if you want to improve, you can worry about that after you start getting paint on the models and then learn how to control your brush, how to thin your paints properly, how to discharge brush, which literally just means you're glazing, but you're pulling excess moisture out so it doesn't look like a puddle when you put it on your model.
Hmm.
Discharge brushing is just taking moisture out. But
Yep.
like these different things, you'll learn as you go. You don't need 400 different YouTube videos only painting Warhammer models to learn how to do these things because, as most of you probably know, you look around for War Machine stuff, I assume, if you're here.
Oh no,
Or
we do
like me,
War Machine, we do BattleTech, we do 40K.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're looking for a specific game that's outside of the Games Workshop sphere, it's harder to find like YouTube videos or content in general on those games, especially in the same format. Because most of the painting videos, a lot of the painters, the bigger painters that put them on YouTube, this isn't a them problem. It's the way the algorithm works, right? So they're mostly going to paint Warhammer stuff because that's the stuff that actually gets views, and it's not like these other games aren't popular. They're not entrenched in the YouTube sphere like Warhammer is. War Machine was getting there back in the day until
Hey, we're
certain
gonna
things
get there
happened.
again. We're gonna get there again. We're gonna keep going. You know, maybe if GW keeps making mistakes and SFG keeps making good actions, maybe we'll be top dog.
That's all they need though. Like they don't even need to push for it. They just need to be themselves. Like just be War Machine.
Yeah.
Like we didn't want like Age of Sigmar came out at the wrong time because Mark III was gaining steam because it came out late 2015, right? Because we were still playing beta, I think, back then. Because Matt, our press ganger, had like the rules and stuff out. Here's
So
some
we
of
were
the tester
doing,
rules.
yeah, so Mark III came out in, I think, right when I hit Germany, which would have been, or right before maybe, it was like 2017, 2018 was Mark III. So we were still in the back end of Mark II when Sigmar came out. And that was a bad decision for, well, in my opinion. They can do whatever they want. But in my decision, or my opinion, that was a bad decision for GW. That hurt them. And then also not listening to their fans when their fans were talking to them and, blaming their fans and getting angry with their fans. Then their fans were like, well, cool, we will go play something else. And
Cool.
people,
You want to get rid of Warhammer Fantasy? We'll go play War Machine, and that's
yep,
what happened.
yep. I mean, we've pulled like for War Machine, we have been able to pull from 40K, we've been able to pull from BattleTech, from Fantasy, from all sorts of different things. And, are we always top dog? No. But we try. We try to, make it more fun for everybody and have fun and do all that stuff. Dude,
And that's the
I got
thing.
that
Is like
blue
they.
I got that
I
blue
think that's part of
steel
the problem.
on that blade. So good.
Is that the true metallic metal from Viejo?
No, that was me blending Signar blue with um mixing median, cold steel, and what was the other one? And dark blue, pro acrylic dark blue. And then yeah, it came out really good. So here's the thing.
So
Yeah,
like,
what he said, his is probably an easier way to get there. I didn't want to grab that because it was on the paint rack over there. So I'm like, well, I know how to do approximately that with mixing four different paints, and I did, and it worked out.
yeah, that's again that's something. If you guys are really interested in just getting better at painting, learn how to mix your own pigments. Right, it's going to save you money, especially if you like. Pro Acryl has an entire paint set, a special paint set from Rogue Hobbies. If you don't know who she is, she used to work. She was a former GW employee. She has a whole thing on it. I'm not going to speak for her, but she's a phenomenal painter. So she came up with her signature series for Pro Acryl, and it's a full Roy G. Biv.
Hmm.
So like if you look for the Pro Acryl Rogue Hobbies paint set, it is literally designed so that you can mix any color that you want. It's 6 paints, and it is a great starting point if you're learning how to do, like, if you want to really get into mixing your paints. That is a phenomenal paint set to learn that. It is full Roy G. Biv. It's beautiful. That and
I
the
mean,
Vince
here
Venturella paint set.
when you're getting into painting though, and this is something that Jeremy talked about with, it is not a bad thing to be able to pull paint right off the like to take paint, put it on your wet palette, thin it out a little bit, and know that you're going to get the same color for your entire army. Because when you have to
Yep.
start mixing, if you mix and then you come back and you're like, oh, how did I mix that? You might not remember. So
Yeah.
if you want to pull, or heck, if you want to pull paint right out of the pot, like you just pulled up, you want to paint. Let's see if I have anything I pulled. I don't think I have anything on my desk that I pulled right from the pot. But some of these things. So here I go. This one. So this is Invictus. It's a Mark III or Mark IV. It's Magnus's new Warjack. You know, big beastie guy. But I know that that green right there is that camo green. I know that when I go back and I do it again, I know exactly. I know that I need to do 2 drops of camo green, 1 drop of water, and apply. And I will get that
Yep.
same color every single time. So don't let someone tell you that you can't, that you have to mix, that you can't just paint right from, from the color and dead color it. Because now this isn't even close to done, but I know that I'm gonna get all of that green at the same time. When I do his legs, it's gonna be the same time. When I do, so that bronze is, I think I have that pro acryl bronze somewhere here. Literally pro acryl bronze, and I'm gonna get it. Now, am I gonna go and do highlights and stuff on this? Absolutely, but this is nice, clean lines, good thin coats or good, even coats, and it'll look good. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
good start that I know I could do for every single thing for my Gravediggers army. It's all going to look good. It's all going to be uniform and consistent, and that's going to help with overall. Like I've seen people who have a beautiful display piece in their army, but the rest of their army isn't great or not consistent. If you do something like that and your entire army is the same color, same highlights, you know, same edging, all of those things, someone might pick your army as a best painted just because the consistency is there.
Yeah. And
That's
that's like it's there's a few easy ways to achieve that too. Like we talked about it earlier. You get Alex just highlighted basically universal highlights, right? Like keeping it consistent across the thing. Focus on the faces of your infantry model because the
oh
first
no
thing
no
it's
no
going to draw to your eye.
helmets, helmets, helmets
If
on
you have
every.
helmets, yeah, but that's the same thing. But
Okay.
like, if you focus on that specific area where your eye, when I pick this robot up, I'm going to look him in the face, right? So I put like a zippy little highlight on just with like a fluorescent green on the front where his little para close combat weapons are. So like you see that from a distance, you're like, oh, there's some effort put in there because that's where your eyes are drawn. The higher the contrast, the more likely eyes are going to be drawn to that too. And you can do this too in a very, we call it lazy, right? It's a lazy way. But when I say lazy, I mean it's getting the most amount of effect for the least amount of effort. For you airbrushers out there, universal shadow colors. Okay, easily the easiest way to do this. It's an OSL effect, right? Like these guys right here, say they're on an alien planet, so I have like a magenta dirt, right? I picked out some with a neutral green or neutral gray for the rocks. There's a little bit of like flat green in there as a filter for it, but you can see like I have these bright, vibrant tufts that I put on there. Now, if you wanted to do a universal shadow color for something like that, you would just take the magenta that you used for the dirt and just apply that glow effect in the shadow. So basically just a reverse zenithal with an airbrush. It takes no time at all to do it. And you just leave it alone once you're painting, right? Just leave the shadow effect in there. That's another really simple way to just have a unifying effect across your army and it pops, especially when you add more contrast like on top of it for your actual natural light zenithal. So like all of those colors, those things work together. Even if it's not perfectly glazed down or you can see brush strokes, doesn't matter. Just those simple things that add maybe 10 minutes to the entirety of your paint job, they make a huge difference. And somebody, like he said, they'll go around, look at your stuff from the table, like, that looks cool for the vote for best painted army, which should be community based.
Mhm.
They're gonna pick it because it just looks good on the table. Now, that's especially for horde armies. If you're playing something like Age of Sigmar and you're playing Skaven and you have 200 models, which it's not the most common thing. Most of the builds don't have remotely close to that, but like if you're playing something like that, or orcs in 40k, if you're playing the Green Tide, universal shadow colors go a long way, like really do, because it takes away a lot of the tedium of painting 100 plus models. No matter how cool the models are, if you're painting more than 50 or 60 of them, it's tedious. And this is why when I sit down to do it, I find a podcast I like. My podcast, Last Podcast on the Left, they're ridiculous. I love them. They're funny as hell. So I'll listen to them while I'm painting, and it makes the time go by, but it doesn't take away from the tedium so much where I still need to like get up and run around, like go do something that's different. But like those things, universal highlights, universal shadows, they go a long way and they do not take much time. And you can do that dry brushing, by the way.
Mhm.
But it's like Alec was talking about earlier. Dry brushing isn't just this thing you do prior to. I know it's turned into this, but we're older school. So dry brushing was always the way that you got quicker highlights after you finished your, I would say the Games Workshop process, because that's really what it is base, shade, layer, dry brush for your highlight. It doesn't take that much time and you get a solid effect, right? And that's something you can do across your whole army, especially, thank God, more things don't have just regular faces on all the models anymore, but thank God for all those companies that are actually putting helmets on things. In that scenario, that works really well.
It's so
And I have a
nice.
tendency to ramble, but you get where I'm coming from.
No, I was gonna say
Simple.
one of the reasons I loved Protectorate of Menoth, and I still do, is helmets and masks on every face. It's so
Yeah.
nice. I just, dark silver, light silver, maybe brush on a small wash and then hit it with a silver dry brush, and ta-da, I'm done. And do that straight down the line, and my life is easier, and I am happier, and I am then getting closer to throwing dice so that I can then have my dice betray me and I can lose in other ways. But
So that brings up another question I think a lot of people would have, and I think it's pretty accurate when you describe Protectorate, right? What is the one color that Protectorate has that is harder to paint than almost any color?
that white, that white is
Okay. Now, how would you say was the best way to go across that, or to approach painting white? This rule doesn't apply for yellow as much. So for the most part, yellow, you're gonna have to actually paint yellow, right?
no, start with
Um,
pink.
well, pink
I
for the
when I
shadows, yeah.
when I no, I was gonna say that I would paint in pink, a dark pink, or I'm sorry, a light pink, and then I would do a little bit of a dark pink for where I want darker colors, and then I would come in with yellow over it. When I commission painted a Imperial Fists, and that's what I did.
I'm gonna hijack this camera
Go
from
ahead.
you real quick. I'm gonna show you guys something. So I don't have a dual setup, but you guys can, like, you can see the wet palette right now, right?
Hmm.
So one of the things, this is a tip I think a lot of people don't really get when they first start using wet palette. You see how this is a pile. I live in a humid area, so this isn't going to dry out too much. But one of the things when you're painting off of a pet or a wet palette, I said a pet palette, yeah. Notice when you do this, what's going to happen to that pile? It's not going to last very long because you've taken the pigment with the moisture and the medium in it, you've spread it out across, right? So it's covering more area. Therefore, it is going to dry faster. So one of the things you don't want to do when you squeeze a little bit of a paint, say I got this Vallejo neutral gray on this palette, instead of mixing this all around and making a puddle out of this, a wider puddle, don't do that because you're just wasting paint. Take it, draw a little tail out, and then make a little pile out here. This tail is not going to dry very fast in comparison to this wide spread out puddle. So you're still going to be able to pull a little more paint from the little tail for a little bit. And it's better than doing this with this bigger pile of paint because this is just going to dry out. So when you're using your wet palette, tail it out a little bit, make a little pile, and then use that until that dries out. Then do
You
it
can
again, then
also,
do it again.
so with mine, I know people have been critical of the amount of paint I use on mine. Um, Jeremy, you'll see this if you watch the episode. So I have a lot of paint, but what I do
I don't
is,
think you use that much, dude. It's like 3 drops. It looks a lot more than it
no,
is.
so no, I trust me. Hold on, let me, um, I'm gonna send you a picture real quick. I'll send it to you afterwards. So on my palette, I have a lot of, so I put down like 5 drops of color, and then I
Yep.
did 2 drops of another, and then I added water. So it looks like I have a huge amount of paint in my palette. Most of it is water, or it's mixing medium. I mean, most of it's actually still probably just water. But what I can do is instead of pulling from the middle of the color, I pull from the edge. And then I'll touch one edge, like this green, and then I'll touch this blue, and then I'll touch this silver, and then that's a warhead. And the reason it's like a, green and blue and silver is because on these RPG rounds that she has on her hip, um, they're going to be kind of camo, but they're not. And I could do, um, non-metallic metal, which is kind of what I'm doing in that regard. I guess if I didn't have the silver in, it would be more non-metallic metal. But it's the idea that I'm going to come over here, I'm going to grab green, I'm going to touch blue, I'm going to touch silver, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do it again. And that's going to make it look, well, when it's done, it's going to make it look like a color camoed round. Because not all your munitions, when you're in the field, when you're doing such stuff, are bright silver. Because bright silver, bright metal gives away your position. So sometimes if you learn, like, you don't have to do what the real world is. You can just do fun and silly, and that's okay. For me, when I'm doing it, I like to try to go with a little bit more of, the reality of it. But you could easily do it as bright pink and all the camo, and your people just look that way in the field. But sometimes if you take that little bit extra time, you're like, oh, this is why camo works the way it is. This is why, these weapons are painted this way. This is why, like, back in the day, you know, all of the army camo was green BDU. And then we went to Desert Storm 1 and it all became the desert drab uniform. And then it went from ACU and everything was that way. But the thing is, it wasn't just the guys wearing the uniform, it was the vehicles, it was some of their gear, things like that. So it helped supposedly to blend in. Except ACU was horrible, and I don't know why we ever went to that other than money. But that's a whole other that is not a painting related.
Yeah,
But
ACU didn't even blend in with the concrete they thought it was going to. It was like,
yeah, that's
no.
it blended in with that one couch picture meme. Remember that grandma's couch where the guy was like, that's the only time. But when you're doing your colors, it blends in like by doing the natural highlights, by doing different things, it's gonna make it look. So now her warheads for her RPGs right there, they don't just stick out. They kind of blend in. And as I paint more and more of it, you're gonna see those warheads because they're gonna be different than her cloak. But they're also it takes 10 seconds to do that because she has 3 little warheads on her hip, but it looks cool. And so sometimes taking that 3 seconds can change, the feel of a model, and it can make it look that much cooler. And yeah, that's one of the things. But so we are at about 50 minutes, so we normally try to keep the episodes under an hour. So I want to say, Jeremy, thank you for coming out. Thank you for your tips. Thank you for telling us what you listen to. And um, I would love for you to come on back again and chat. And one of the things I've always talked about is that one of the reasons why I have guests come on while I paint is because you can go to your local game store or sit at your kitchen table with your buddies and paint and chat and goof off and riff off each other or whatever and have fun.
Yep.
Because sometimes the best types of painting, the painting goes by so much faster when you're chatting and painting with friends. And be it, maybe you don't have friends that are local, so you have to do it on Discord, like how Jeremy and I are doing it right now. But it's one of those things that a lot of people forget that this area is community based. It's community painting, it's community gaming. So work together, have fun. And again, so Jeremy, where can people find you if they want to find you?
Um, I'm usually pretty private, but I will be pumping out. You see my username. I'll be pumping out some stuff on Instagram. If you see Wubs on Instagram, once I eventually make the thing go public, then that's where I'll be. Until then, I hang out in private. I used to work in cybersecurity, so I don't like all my information being out there.
Oh,
But
fair.
eventually, I will get there. Just for once I at a point where I can comfortably post stuff where I think it's at the level that I can post it on the internet.
Okay. Well, thank you again. And I hope you come on back and we can paint and chat and talk more color theory or painting or quick painting ideas or just the zen of painting. So thank you so much for everyone for coming on out. Again, I'm Alec of Let's Get You Painted and Rack to Confuse, and I will see you all next time. Bye.